Hello, everyone, and welcome to episode 131 of the True Crime All the Time Unsolved podcast. I'm Mike Ferguson, and with me, as always, is my partner in true crime, Mike Gibson. Gibby, how are you, man?
Oh, good, man. How about you?
I'm doing great.
131.
You know, when you add that to the $150 on True Crime All Time, which will be next week, 150, that's a lot of episodes.
It is, man.
To do over, 3 years or however long it's been.
That's a lot of sitting down in front of you.
It is. It's a lot of research. It's a lot of talking.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how much longer my throat can hold up from all this talking.
I'm ready to step in.
Are you? I keep saying, all right, Gibbs, go ahead.
I've been riding the sidelines.
Oh, man, I don't know.
Like that backup quarterback for Pittsburgh, right? Pittsburgh just lost their quarterback.
Yeah, so did the Saints. All right, man, we had some new Patreon supporters. Let's do some shout outs. We had Taryn Charles.
Hey, Taryn.
Angie Sawyer.
What's up, Sawyer?
Rebecca.
Hey, Rebecca.
Caleb Jones.
Hey, Caleb.
Patricia Sue.
Hey, Patricia.
Chelsea Kitzler.
Thanks, Chelsea.
Madeira Egglight.
Egglight?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Samantha Woodward.
Hey, Samantha.
Kylie.
What's up, Kylie?
Rebecca.
Thanks, Rebecca.
Catherine Hayland.
Hey, Catherine.
Sydney.
What's up, Sydney?
Jordy Rice.
I like that, Jordy.
Jasmine Bukverovich.
Bukverovich.
That's what I'm going with.
Very good.
Caitlin McGarry.
Hey, Caitlin.
Amanda Sue.
Thanks, Amanda.
Lisa Marie.
Lisa Marie.
I don't know if it's the Lisa Marie.
Really? Like
could be.
Memphis? Yeah.
Like Memphis?
Yeah.
Like Elvis Presley?
I didn't want to say his name.
You didn't want to say his name?
Every time you say his name, you got to pay like royalty fees, man.
Leslie and Tom Smith.
Hey, Leslie.
Karen Cavell.
Cavella.
Shauna.
Hey, Shauna.
Carl Causey.
What's up, Carl?
Mandy DeFee.
Hey, Mandy.
Jane Roberts.
Hey, Jane.
Nicholas Adams.
Thanks, Nicholas.
And Sarah Donaldson.
Thank you, Sarah.
So we appreciate all that new Patreon support.
Amazing.
And then if we go back into the vault, Gibbs, this week we selected Crystal Weiss Amredchik.
Hey, Crystal.
Been with us a long time.
Yeah.
You know, years, probably back to 2017 is where we're at with the vault.
Maybe she's got a tattoo. Said I'm a T-Cat since from 2000.
From 19.
Yeah, I was going really back.
I'm going to bet money she does not have that tattoo.
Yeah.
Only you have I've been a T-Cat supporter since 1900 and something.
Yeah. Well, we know that's not true either because my wallet don't.
You'd have to pay for the tattoo.
Yeah.
So we had some PayPal support as well. Heather Allen.
Hey, Heather.
Raven Marks.
Thanks, Raven.
Candace Zugich.
Candace.
Ebony Watson.
Hey, Ebony.
And Melissa Buell.
Hey, thanks,
Melissa.
So,
yeah, big thanks. Big thanks to all those folks that are supporting us. Gibbs, right now on True Crime All the Time, we have an episode out on Paul Rhodes.
Yeah.
You know, brutal guy.
Extremely brutal.
Committed, at the very least, 3 murders.
Probably more.
Probably more. Police suspect the number's higher. This is another one of those cases where, this individual was kind of prowling convenience stores late at night, looking for people that were working alone.
Yeah.
It's a scary, scary thought.
Now you wonder when you go up to those places, you got to pay everything to a tiny little window.
And there's a reason for it.
Yeah, so you can't get mad. I went up the other day to get something, and I was like, why is it locked? And I'm like, oh, it's because it's 12 o'clock at night.
Right.
And I thought, well, this is stupid. But I thought, no, it's not.
It's very dangerous to be in there by yourself.
Yeah, if that was my kid, I'd want them to be locked behind that door, too.
Yeah. Don't forget about our new podcast, The Reviews Are In. This Tuesday, we're talking about the girlfriend pillow.
Yeah.
Very funny episode. This is a product that I pretty much assumed you already had. You told me you didn't.
I know. Maybe I'll get 2.
I have a feeling you'll be placing an Amazon order soon,
Probably
but
2.
You'll get 2.
I mean,
Well, you have to listen to the episode to find out, but it is almost like half of a person in certain ways. So, all right, man, are you ready to get into this episode of Unsolved?
I'm ready.
We are talking about the disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. Gibbs, to me, this is a fascinating case. Tragic, obviously,
True.
but very, very interesting. For one, we're going to Rome, Italy.
Yeah.
And we're not even just going to Rome. We're spending some time in Vatican City.
The all-powerful Vatican City.
Because there are ties to the Vatican with this case. And I think most people know what that is, but just in case, it is the Roman Catholic headquarters. And Vatican City is such a anomaly. It's like its own little country within a country.
Yeah, which is unique.
It is. In the fact that it doesn't really answer to anybody, right? It has its own laws, but yet it's this small little area inside of Rome, Italy.
Yeah, it's just 109 acres sitting there.
So about the size of your spread, your ranch, that you own.
Yeah.
The Italian government has no authority inside the Vatican walls. It was founded in 1911. And like you mentioned, it encompasses about 109 acres. And then you have the Pope.
Yeah. Very important person.
Very important person, known as the King of Vatican City. So essentially, whoever is the Pope also rules the Holy Sees, which is like a corporation.
Yeah, it's like the way I understood it was like the holding of everything that's all the land in the Vatican City, everything. And the Pope is like the chairman of the
board.
The board.
Yeah, it's kind of like a holding company.
Yeah.
Right? For everything that they own. And then obviously you have about 1 billion members
all over the world, man,
of the Catholic religion outside of the walls of Vatican City. There's roughly only about 1,000 people inside the walls of Vatican City. It's not a lot.
No, but if you think about just slightly over 100 acres with all the streets and the buildings and the cemeteries and all that, that's not a lot of space for much more people.
So all of this adds to the story, right, that we're about ready to tell, because a lot of people, Gibbs, feel that the Vatican has a lot of secrets, right? Yeah. Has kept a lot of secrets throughout history and has protected certain information when it comes to the Vatican and the church. I don't think that's any big secret. The Vatican is protected by a very well-trained Swiss army.
Hey, I wonder if they use that big fancy pocket knife.
The Winger?
The Winger.
That we talked about on the reviews.
Yeah, the Winger 169.99 or whatever it was called.
It is a pretty safe place to be, right? This small population is pretty safe within the walls of Vatican City.
Yeah, I think if you live there, knowing that you, one, have the Swiss army patrolling and the fact that it's holy ground, I think you got to feel pretty confident.
Now let's talk a little bit about Emanuela. She was born on January 14th, 1968 in Vatican City. She had 4 siblings. Her parents were Ercole and Maria Orlandi. Ercole worked for the church as a clerk, just as his dad had, taking care of business affairs and other duties. He didn't report to the Pope directly, but it was said that he would see him from time to time within the papal household.
Which has got to be kind of a
big deal.
Big deal, yeah.
And for the kids, I mean, they would play in the Vatican gardens, on the lawns, and they too would see the Pope from time to time. I guess it wouldn't be strange if you grew up that way. It would be strange for us to meet the Pope.
Yeah, I think we'd be like, whoa, why are you looking at me that way?
But as a kid, you just think, okay, the Pope comes out to the garden. He says, hi. That's just what we do.
Yeah, this is normal, In
1983, Emanuela was 15 years old when she went missing. She was a sophomore in high school. She was very talented. She sang in the choir, and she was very adept at playing the flute. Gibbs, it was said that she was so good and talented musically that she attended one of the best music schools in Rome. So she would go to the music school after her normal school lessons.
So it's a pretty busy day, right?
Sure.
Morning, early afternoon, get all your schoolwork, Latin out of the way or whatever, and then head off to your music lessons.
Yeah, it sounds like my daughter in a way, right? She goes to school all day. She is a dancer. She dances probably 3 or 4 hours a night training.
Yeah.
Those are long days. She does that like 3 times a week.
And somehow they got to fit in homework.
Yep.
Yeah.
So Emanuela had to take a bus across town to Central Rome for these classes. And on June 22nd, 1983, she was running late for one of her music classes. She called home and her sister answered. Emanuela told her that she was going to be late for this music class just in case they called, right? In case the school called and said, we don't know where she is. That's pretty thoughtful.
Sure. For a kid.
For a 15-year-old to call home and say, hey, just in case, I want to let you know what's going on. It's something we try to get my kids to do all the time.
Yeah.
With varying degrees of success.
I can't, when my kids were 15, I couldn't even get them to take the paper plate that needed to go in the trash can. They would take it to the countertop by the trash can.
Which was right next to the trash
like,
can.
you just need to go the extra 2 inches and drop it in the trash can.
Can't do it, Dad. So there was a reason why Emanuela was going to be late. She had just received a job offer. This was from a lady selling Avon cosmetics. I think a lot of people listening will know what Avon is.
Yeah, I think Avon was really big back in the 80s.
I think it was too.
Dominating factor.
Yeah. I mean, you should know with the amount of Avon that you sold back then. Weren't you one of the top salespeople? Didn't you have a special car?
I did, man.
I remember all of this.
Yeah.
So to act like you kind of know, I think you're holding out.
I was competing with those Mary Kay women, you know?
It was you and Mary Kay neck and neck?
Neck and neck, yeah. This never knew.
So she did eventually make it to her music class. After the class ended, she was telling one of her friends about this job offer, and she was really excited about it. The friend has said that Emanuela made a statement about the fact that maybe this job would be the thing that could allow her to run away from home. That's interesting.
Yeah, you know, I mean, I know that she is living in an apartment with 4 other siblings, busy life. Maybe it was just too much. Maybe she's like wanted something different. Maybe she didn't want to have to go to music class every day. Who knows, right? We don't know why she wanted to run away. I'm just trying to figure out. But at 15, who knows, right?
Yeah, but at 15, running away usually means you're not happy with your parents.
Yeah.
Not so much that you're cramped and you're looking for more space or another space. It's normally something's going on in my house that I don't like.
Or there's a boy outside the house that you really like.
Exactly. So we don't know, but it's an important fact to put out there. She was supposed to catch the bus home after class so that she could talk with her parents about this job offer. But Emanuela didn't get on the bus. Her friend later said that she saw her get into a dark green BMW that was driven by a woman. The friend also said that she saw inside the car an Avon bag sitting on the seat.
Well, I'm assuming, but we don't know, that this was probably the person that she talked to about the Avon job.
I would say that's a good assumption. About 3 p.m., when Emanuela didn't return home, her parents got worried. They called the music school to see if they could tell them where she was. They had no clue. So the parents called the police. But all they said to them was that they were sure that she would be home soon. She's probably out with her friends.
Yeah, give it some time. Let her eventually work herself home. It's all good.
Later that night, Emanuela's still not home. Her parents are frantic. They call back to police, and this is when the police declared her officially a missing person.
Which is good, right? Because I know here, a lot of times they wait 24 hours. They let a little bit more time go past, depending on the age of the reported person.
Especially years ago.
Yes.
I think they may jump on a little quicker these days. I really don't know. But when you're talking 70s and 80s, we've done a lot of cases where the police have said, you know what? It hasn't been 24 hours. Some of that may still exist in jurisdictions today. I don't know. But I agree with you that, so right off the bat, they said, let's give it a little time.
Yeah.
But when the parents called back, they didn't wait. They declared her a missing person. So the police searched over the next few days for Emanuela. They even ran some ads in the local papers. In these ads, they put the parents' phone number.
And I found that strange that they didn't have like a
hotline.
Yeah.
Or the police number.
But more of, hey, such and such is missing. Please call us direct at, I just find that strange. But
well, I think you find that strange because that's not something you would see here in the United States. And I think probably for a good reason.
Yeah.
My assumption is you'd get a lot of crank calls. Some of them could potentially be nasty.
Yeah.
Saying, I know where your daughter is. I mean, people do things like that all the time. It's horrible.
Yeah, it wouldn't be good. Not here.
But it's important to point out, Emanuela was last seen outside of the Vatican walls. So the Vatican let the Italian police work the case, probably because they almost had to. They had no jurisdiction. Whatever happened to her most likely happened on Italian soil.
And that would make sense.
They put up over 3,000 posters and flyers with Emanuela's picture on it all over Rome. On Saturday, June 25th, the family got a call from a teenager that said he and his girlfriend had run into Emanuela in the Rome town square of Piazza Navona. Earlier that afternoon, this square is a huge tourist spot.
That's the fancy part of Rome that has the fountains and the statues. It's really kind of a romantic place to go.
It's a tourist destination.
Absolutely.
So this is a big deal, Gibbs. Police wanted to talk to this person, this teenager. He told the police that the girl he saw looked just like the girl in the flyer, except for the fact that she had glasses on and her hair was shorter. He even brought up the fact that she was carrying a flute, which is what Emanuela played. He said she introduced herself to he and his girlfriend as Barbara. He said she was selling Avon cosmetics and had run away from home.
And I found it interesting, too, the parents of Emanuela said that she does wear glasses. She just doesn't like to wear them. So that's why the picture on the poster did not display glasses, but she actually does wear them. So they weren't surprised that she had them on.
And pretty easy to get your hair cut.
Yeah.
Doesn't take very long at all to get it cut shorter.
Exactly. If that was her.
If that was her. But my thought is that the parents and the police had to think, wow, this is a lot of information if it's a coincidence.
Yeah.
She's carrying a flute. She says she's selling Avon cosmetics. She tells them that she had just run away from home, the same thing that she told her friend that she might be able to do.
Yeah, it's all lining up.
It is. Just 3 days after that, a man calling himself Mario called the Orlandi house and told the family that he owned a bar located between the music school and Vatican City. Mario said that a young woman had stopped into his bar. She said her name was Barbara and she had recently run away from home. But Barbara told him that she would be going back home to be in her sister's wedding and then returning to Rome after that. And again, Mario said that this girl looked just like the girl in the flyer.
So it sounds like if it's her, she just decided to change her name to Barbara. Maybe she did cut her hair to try to look a little different. Maybe it was as the disguise.
Well, if you are trying to disguise yourself, if you do not want people to know who you are, you can't go around using your real name.
Yeah.
You have to change your appearance in some way.
But maybe not go around saying I just ran away from home.
That is a strange tidbit to keep adding to everyone you meet. And Gibbs, her sister was set to get married. On Sunday, July 3rd, Pope John Paul II actually made a public plea during his Sunday broadcast. He asked that whoever was responsible for Emanuela's disappearance or kidnapping to please return her now. And I guess this was unprecedented for the Pope to do something like this in his Sunday broadcast.
Well, just the fact that he injected himself into a personal case too, right? I mean, here's the Pope. He's over 1 billion people across the world, and he's actually taking on this one individual and making a fairly large statement. It's pretty rare. And I think people notice that. And I think they noticed it. Some of them, I think they took it as pretty profound compassion, but I also think people took it as, what's going on? What does the Pope know?
Why is this case so special where he would do this as opposed to maybe other people that have disappeared?
Yeah, absolutely, yeah.
And I think the other thought that people had, Gibbs, was that he just put a big target on this girl. If she was kidnapped, then whoever had her was definitely going to try to extort the Vatican for money.
Sure, they just realized they just hit the jackpot. It's the lotto.
And we mentioned, right, that the family's home number was put up on all these flyers that went out all over Rome. They started getting calls from people saying, I've got your daughter. I know where your daughter is. But one call stood out in particular. It was a call on July 5th from someone that stated that Emanuela was kidnapped by a terrorist group from Turkey, and they would exchange her for a Turkish prisoner named Mehmet Ali Agca. He was a prisoner who shot the Pope in 1981 in a failed assassination attempt. Then 2 days later, the family got a call from someone with an American accent. The caller played a recording of Emanuela's voice. He then proceeded to ask for the exchange of Emanuela for this prisoner, Agca. This is a big deal. The life of a 15-year-old girl in exchange for what Gibbs had to have been a very serious prisoner for the Vatican. This guy tried to assassinate the Pope.
Yeah.
This is not a person who stole a loaf of bread and then took off running.
Right. This is not like a financial crime issue. This is somebody that almost got away with killing the Pope.
The man with the American accent that called the Orlandi family also called the Vatican that same day, making the very same demand.
So working all the angles. And I say working all the angles because the very next day, he reaches out to the media and does the same thing. So they're doing everything they can to get this out there, which really for them is good because now you're saying, we've got her. We're willing to give her back, but you got to give us what we want. It's really simple, folks. Give us him. You get her. Everybody's happy. We all go our own way.
It puts people in a very difficult position.
Yeah.
You are basically saying, this is what you have to do to ensure the safety of a 15-year-old girl. Are you willing to do it or not? But again, this is not just any person. I mean, this would be like someone kidnapping a 15-year-old girl in America.
Yeah.
And basically saying, we'll return her if you release John Hinckley.
Yeah.
Sometime a couple of years after he tried to assassinate Ronald Reagan.
Right.
Very tough position. Now, I think in the United States, I don't know that it would be that tough. The stance has been, for the most part, that we don't negotiate with terrorists.
Yeah.
If it was a terrorist group, let's say,
Right.
that had kidnapped somebody.
Because you got to be careful because you do it for this one. What's going to stop somebody from kidnapping random people and then coming back and say, okay, we got these people.
Now we want somebody else.
Yeah. And it's just,
And I think that's why the position is often taken, because the thought is it would just lead to terrorist groups doing more of the same. But when this guy called the local media, he told them that the Pope needed to make sure that this happened. He also said that he would provide proof of life pictures along with copies of her school ID, a note that she had written, and a receipt that Emanuela had. And he would place all of this in a basket in the public square where Parliament is located. He said he would do this on a very specific date, July 26th. But just like we talked about, Gibbs, right? The police didn't feel like they should even entertain this request from a terrorist or a terrorist group. They thought it was a bad idea.
Well, and I think they're right. I hate to say that, but I think they're right.
At the end of the day, I agree with you. I mean, you hate to think that you would not want to do everything you could do to get a 15-year-old back safely. But you do have to look at the bigger picture.
Yeah.
And there is a bigger picture in this case, for sure. So you mentioned it, Gibbs, working all the angles. A couple of days later, a Middle Eastern man called Emanuela's school friend and said that he had her, would return her in 20 days if they released Mehmet from prison. Now, why he would think that Emanuela's teenage school friend would have any influence whatsoever in how this thing played out, that is beyond me.
Nobody else is listening, so let's see if the school friend can get
Let's call a 15, 16-year-old and see if they can get it done. But he gave her some instructions. He told her to have the Vatican City Secretary of State, which is essentially the Pope's right-hand man, put in a direct line so that this guy could call with further details. And the Vatican did. They installed a line specifically with the phone number that they were given. And it was the American, the person with the American accent that called several times to the direct line. Gibbs, I read it was somewhere between 14 and 16 different calls.
So that's a lot of communication.
It is. And of course, they're going to try to trace these phone calls. And they did. They all trace back to different phone booths.
Which, we don't have today, but, that's what you had back then. So imagine they just moved themselves throughout the city, make the call. Back then, you would even know how long you could stay on a phone within reason before you needed to hang up and get the, out of there.
I don't think it was that hard back in the day to know how long it took police to trace things. But nothing really came from these calls. And nothing further happens. This is, to me, one of the strangest parts of this case is that it goes cold.
Yeah.
There's like a flurry of communication in a relatively short period of time, and then all of a sudden, nothing.
So either during these calls, something did happen that was never released to the public. Maybe some quiet deal was made between the Vatican and whatever. But we know that the prisoner was never released.
Yeah, we know that.
So what could have happened? Or like you said, they just said, we're not going to negotiate. Not going to happen.
What else can you do?
And finally they gave up and said, we're not going to be able to trade this girl for him. So move on.
Then on May 14th, 2001, Gibbs, this is 18 years later, a local parish priest near the Vatican found a smaller human skull. So when I say smaller, didn't appear to be an adult-sized skull.
Right.
So obviously this priest calls the police. They're going to test this skull, but it was never identified as belonging to Emanuela. Emanuela's father died in 2004, never knowing what happened to his daughter. In 2013, Pope Francis met with Emanuela's oldest brother, who by that time was working for the Vatican Bank and had been for many years.
Yeah.
Because of his role at the bank, he had heard a lot of rumors and theories that we're going to touch on in this episode. But he said the Pope approached him and told him that Emanuela is in heaven. So he didn't need to worry about his sister any longer. He's been quoted as saying that this was a very surreal moment. And it would be. I can't think of a more surreal moment to have the Pope, as big as the Pope is,
right,
come to talk to you about your sister and intimate that he knows she's no longer alive. You have to be thinking in your head, okay, how does he know that?
Right. Besides just saying it to give me comfort, you would assume, well, you'd have to have like details, right? I mean, you know something that I don't know, but you're not going to tell me. You're just going to say, it's okay. She's moved on. You need to move on. It's all good.
I would have like 8 million questions.
Yeah.
And I don't know, because we don't have that information. He probably did ask questions and maybe just didn't get any answer. But Emanuela Orlandi was not the only girl from Vatican City to disappear around that same time frame. Mirella Grigori disappeared just about a month before Emanuela. And there are a lot of people, Gibbs, that feel like these two disappearances are intertwined, and that most likely both of these girls suffered the same fate.
Yes.
Mirella left her home one day in May 1983 to go on a date with a classmate, and then she was never seen again. After Mirella disappeared, her mother remembered that one of the members of the Pope's staff would come by the home often to pick up Mirella for certain events for the church. Now, that's what Mirella told her, right? That she was going to some type of church event every time this would happen. And I'm thinking, Gibbs, at the time, her mom didn't think anything about it, didn't think it was strange. But after her disappearance, she obviously did.
Sure, because you're going to go through every event, everything in the past to try to make sense of, where is my kid?
Yeah, you're going to dissect everything. So she did begin to think that, looking back on it, this was strange. And just like Emanuela, Mirella Grigori has never been found, never been heard from again. She's still missing, and her case is cold as well. So that's what we know about the case of Emanuela Orlandi. I think now, Gibbs, it's time to get into some of the theories. And there are quite a few of them. Some of them are pretty far out there, but that's what you get, right, on the internet. But it's important. These are not our theories. These are what we've culled from what is out there in either articles, the internet, wherever we can find it.
The three most popular theories for sure.
I think that's a good way to put it. So we talked about the calls, and I think the first theory centers heavily on these calls. People feel that Emanuela was kidnapped because she was an easy target for a Turkish terrorist organization. For one thing, her dad worked in some capacity for the Pope.
Sure.
So they probably thought, this is a girl that travels outside of Vatican City quite a bit. She would be easy to grab. We will try to exchange her for Mehmet.
Yeah, we could have some leverage because of the relationship her dad may have with the Pope.
There are some people that put Mirella in this same situation, that she was kidnapped as well as a token, a pawn. So this Turkish organization that many people label as a terrorist organization, they had an operative group called the Grey Wolves. And the Grey Wolves were said to be the outfit that planned and executed the kidnapping of Emanuela. It's also been reported that during the investigation of Emanuela's kidnapping, police talked to a girl that said she was kidnapped herself just a few days before Emanuela. This girl was also said to have looked quite a bit like Emanuela, and it's thought that she was kidnapped by the Grey Wolves, but they eventually, pretty quickly, realized that she wasn't the right girl, and they let her go. This girl told police that she thought it was a prank. until a few days later when she learned about the disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. So if this is true, and the Grey Wolves did really intend to snatch Emanuela up earlier, right? A few days before, but made a mistake. It seems like Gibbs, they didn't really have any concerns about the mistake exposing them.
Yeah. They weren't, like you said, whatever their plan was, didn't go awry enough to be exposed for them to say, hey, this is off. We're not going to even do it now. We're going to wait a few months.
Abort.
Yeah.
No, they didn't say that. And to be honest with you, I don't know why they would. This little girl didn't know who they were. If this is all true and it happened this way, this is a theory. She didn't know who they were. She didn't know who their intended target was. It really, in my view, would have no bearing on the kidnapping of Emanuela.
Right.
Many years later, Mehmet did an interview where he tried to convince a reporter that Emanuela was in a convent and his organization never had anything to do with her disappearance. But this theory kind of doesn't end here, Gibbs. There are some legs, if you want to call it that. In 2000, an Italian judge looked into Emanuela's case, and he came out and he said that he felt she was living at the time in a Muslim community in France with the backing of the Grey Wolves.
So I'm guessing his thought was maybe they did kidnap her. Maybe they tried this exchange. It didn't go well. Now they were stuck with a 15-year-old, and then they injected her into one of their communities. What were they going to do? They weren't going to return her.
But they weren't going to kill her?
But they weren't going to kill her, so they kept her. And
what kind of terrorist organization is worried about killing a 15-year-old girl? Maybe they have morals against, or, maybe they have something against that. I don't know.
Yeah, or maybe they thought they had a future use. My
biggest issue with that is we don't know the evidence that he's basing his conclusion on. I wish we had that.
Sure.
That's the part for me that is missing.
Would be helpful.
In 2006, Mehmet wrote a letter to the local paper where he basically reversed course and claimed that the Grey Wolves did kidnap Emanuela, as well as Morella Grigori, to use as bargaining chips to get him released from prison. He wrote that both girls were taken to the royal palace in Liechtenstein.
That's a little country.
Yeah, between Switzerland and Austria. But this guy is a piece of work. He just keeps flip-flopping, and he reminds me a lot of some of the killers that we profile on TCAT who don't want to take credit, and then later on they do want to take credit. They want the fame. They want to keep their name in the paper. I don't know that he's doing it for that reason.
And how does it fit into their agenda at that moment?
Yeah, the agenda may change over time. And so the story has to change over time. Mehmet ultimately served 25 years in an Italian prison, then transferred to a Turkish prison to finish the term out for the murder of a Turkish reporter. This was a pretty bad guy.
Yeah.
Not only did he try to kill the Pope, he successfully murdered a Turkish reporter. When he was in this Turkish prison, they somehow let him out early by mistake. Okay, that's a pretty big mistake.
It's a huge one.
They realized what they had done later, and they had to recapture him so that he could finish out his term. But this guy was finally released in 2010. Later that year, he did an interview where he said that, you know what, the Vatican got Emanuela back the same year she went missing, and they locked her up in a Vatican prison. Now, according to him, they did this to use her disappearance against him and his organization's cause. Then, when she got older, the Vatican sent her to Central Europe, where she became a nun in a Catholic monastery. This guy also told the press that her family knew exactly where she was and they could visit her anytime they chose to. All they had to do was travel to the monastery.
So he's got All kind of answers.
He's got an answer for everything. The problem is the answers are different.
Yeah.
What's interesting about it, though, is he's probably had a lot of time to craft some of these narratives
Right.
to the point where they could make sense. I'm not saying he's correct in any way, but technically they're plausible, right? What he is saying is plausible.
Oh, absolutely. He's putting enough out there to make you think, well,
Could that have
maybe.
happened?
Yeah. Do I think that his organization would have kidnapped her? Absolutely. I think that's a possibility.
Definitely.
What happened to her after that? Who knows?
I think it's a hard pill to swallow to think that the Vatican would imprison this girl just to make this terrorist organization look bad.
Right.
That's a tough one. It's a long stretch.
That's a really long stretch.
So let's get into the next theory. We have to look at the organized crime angle.
Well, you got to get a little mafia.
It's Italy, of course.
Yeah, mafiosa.
There was a report in 2011 about a former member of the mafia that said his organization kidnapped Emanuela to extort the Vatican. They wanted the Vatican to pay back money that their previous mob boss had deposited in the Vatican bank. So I'm guessing, Gibbs, that he's saying that the Vatican sees this money.
Yeah.
Much like they sometimes do here in the United States when you're found to be tied to organized crime.
Yeah, for whatever reason.
They'll just seize all your assets and take all your shit.
Yeah. So I'm assuming the Vatican said, hey, you were a bad person, or hey, maybe for whatever reason, they seized it and wouldn't allow anybody else to come in and take the money out. Now, you also have to remember, going back to the time when the Pope decided to say, reach out to the public, whoever knows anything about her disappearance, whoever kidnapped her, please come forward, please return her. So even if these guys didn't have anything to do with it, they could say they did because...
Yeah, they could have looked at it as the perfect opportunity to try to get this money back.
Yeah.
I mean, that had to be at the top of their list. If this really happened and they lost a bunch of money, the mafia is going to want that back.
Yeah. And they could have said, hey, maybe this gray wolf people did take her, but we're going to say we took her and see if we can get our money back.
You got to watch out for those gray wolves.
Great.
This guy actually came out and said that he was one of the mafia members who actually participated in the kidnapping. And I guess, Gibbs, in 2008, his girlfriend went to the Vatican police and told them all of this.
She must have been really upset with him.
Don't make your significant other mad if you've told them a bunch of incriminating stuff.
Not a good thing to do.
But allegedly, she said that they didn't want to pursue it. In 2012, Italian police did open a mob boss's tomb because they received information that Emanuela's body was actually inside the tomb. They took DNA samples and they confirmed it was not her.
But this turned into a bigger event because the local people could not understand what a mob boss's tomb was doing in Vatican land. Why would the Vatican allow such a person to be buried in holy land? It really set a lot of people off.
I can imagine. And I think it's not only because he was buried inside the walls of Vatican City, he was buried in a part of this cemetery that was said to have been reserved for prestigious members of the church.
So that just inflamed the locals even more, right? I mean, not only is he in the city, he's in this prestigious place, and nobody can understand why. And they're not getting any answers either, right? The Vatican's not going to respond to something like that. What could they possibly say at this point?
But it did cause an uproar. And you know what always happens, right? In a situation like that, people tend to gravitate towards conspiracy theories.
Sure.
That's what happens. If you're not going to give them the answer, they're going to come up with one, and it's probably going to be one that doesn't make you look good.
No.
Because there's really not many explanations that you can come up with that are going to make sense and make the church look good at the same time.
Yeah, you just gave Dan Brown his 8th book.
Yep. Now we get to the final theory. Now, this is not the final theory, but it's the last one that we're going to talk about. I think it's the last of the most well-known, most talked about
Yes.
theories out there. And it's that Emanuela Orlandi was used as a sex worker for the Vatican. This whole operation being managed and controlled by the Vatican police and security. So as this theory goes, the head of the Vatican police had Emanuela kidnapped. She was used during sex parties. She was offered up to visiting embassy members. And I think the thought behind this one, you have people visiting from areas where maybe in their culture, it is, I don't want to say normal, but I guess I don't know what other word to use, to have young girls offered up.
Yeah.
For these men of power.
And it happens. It definitely
we know it
happens.
happens.
Yeah.
It's sick.
Yeah, absolutely sick.
And I think this is a theory for me that's hard to stomach.
Right.
Doesn't mean that it couldn't have happened, but it is very hard to stomach. I'll say that. I do think there have been a lot of rumors surrounding this practice of the Vatican using young girls to entertain visiting foreign dignitaries. Of course, the Vatican is going to deny this. And again, I have no idea if this is true, but there have been people that have talked about it. And I'm not just talking about on Reddit. There have been some fairly recent things that have happened in the Emanuela Orlandi case. In October 2018, some construction workers found bones during some renovations at an embassy in Rome, and the media ran a story that these were the bones of Emanuela. But in 2019, after the test results were released, it was proven that the bones were from a man who died in 190 to 230 AD.
Man, you imagine. That's so ancient. That's a big miss.
Well, it is, but I guess it goes to show you that you really can't tell but just by looking at something. You have to really test it.
I guess there is no thing as, I can ballpark that bone.
Yeah, you can't ballpark it by sight. It was after this that the family came out and they asked the media to allow investigators to do their job first, right? Come out with all the facts before they ran with every little story. Because Gibbs, what must have happened. The family heard this, read this. I don't want to say they got excited, but they got hopeful maybe.
Sure.
That they were finally going to get an answer.
Yeah.
About what happened to their daughter, their sister, their loved one.
Now we know. And the fact that they had something that they could bury.
Yes. And just this year, in July, the Vatican released a statement that it was going to allow 2 tombs to be opened. And these weren't just any 2 tombs, right? These were tombs that investigators thought could possibly contain the remains of Emanuela Orlandi.
Yeah, at this point, the Vatican was trying to show some good faith towards the investigators because the family at this point was saying, and has for a long time, that they just didn't feel like the Vatican was telling them everything, that they felt like they were holding back some information.
And or cooperating the way they could have.
Could have. But the Vatican would say, no, we just don't have anything to tell you. But because the whole mystery behind the Vatican, there were some family members that thought, there's more that you're not telling us. But at this point, the family was happy that they were going to open up these 2 tombs.
And it came out that the reason why investigators thought Emanuela could be buried in one of these tombs is because they got an anonymous tip from someone that told them she was buried here. And what's interesting about it, Gibbs, is there's this big angel that kind of looks down on these tombs.
Right.
And the anonymous caller gave that information. That's what led them to want to excavate these tombs. But these weren't the tombs of just anyone, right? These were two German princesses from like the 1900s or something.
Yeah.
So on July 11th, they opened the tombs. There wasn't a single thing in either one of them.
No, not Emanuela, but not the princesses either that should have been in there.
So 2 days after this, the Vatican came out and it said they found the bones of these two princesses, but nothing tied to Emanuela. And their explanation was that the bones must have been moved during some renovations that occurred back in the 1960s.
I'm just thinking that they run a pretty tight ship. You wouldn't note that somewhere.
But this is the type of thing that leads people to question.
Yeah.
It leads to, like I said, dreaming up or thinking up conspiracy theories because they're on the same page with you. How could you not know this?
Well, I mean,
wouldn't you keep a log? Wouldn't you, once that was done, put these princesses back where, into their rightful tombs? It all sounds odd. And anytime something is odd, doesn't make sense, it leads to people thinking that something is going on more than what is being told.
Yeah.
Now, whether that's the case, I don't know, but people can't help but think that. But I guess while they were searching for the remains of these princesses, a trapdoor was found in a nearby tomb that led to this underground area where they found the bones of at least 12 unidentified bodies.
It's a huge find.
This is a big find. It said they removed 24 bags of bones. So they brought in an anthropologist to examine all of these bones. I mean, there were complete bones. There was a lot of bone fragments.
It would be a disaster to try to figure all that out, I would think.
Yeah, they used DNA. They used some carbon testing. And they were able to determine that the remains dated back to the 1800s. So these were very old.
Yeah. Not surprising, though, because of the site. I mean, the site has been around for such a long time.
When it sounds like this underground area probably had not been messed with for a very long time.
Yeah, if the bones were estimated to be from the 1800s. Yeah, you're exactly right.
Now, it was said, Gibbs, that the Orlandi family wanted some additional testing on some of the bones, but the request was denied. Basically, because they said every bit of data they had pointed to the fact that, these bones were 250, 300 years old. There's no way that any of them could have been Emanuela. But you and I both know, as a parent, that wouldn't stop you from wanting every test, every avenue gone down. You're just never going to stop.
Yeah.
Ever.
Because you're going to want some answer. And by not testing what you wanted them to test, in back of your mind, you're going to be like, what if? What if? What if?
And the conspiracy theorists are going to say the reason why you're not testing it is because one of those bones or some of those bones belong to Emanuela and you don't want it to come out.
Right.
So it's kind of like this vicious circle.
And I don't know if the Vatican could ever satisfy all the conspiracy theories.
They can't. And the reason that they can't is because they're not that forthcoming with information. That's just not who the Vatican is, right? They don't come out and tell everything. And I'm not talking about hiding dirty secrets. It's just not, I don't think it's in their nature to just come out and try to explain every little thing to everyone.
Right. As any large corporation would or wouldn't do, right?
The place where you work, where I used to work, they don't come out and tell you everything.
No. It's not in their best interest, too.
It's not like they're not hiding dead bodies as far as I know, but they're still not going to come out and tell you every little thing that you might want to know.
Right.
So, I mean, at the end of the day, this case is still unsolved.
For me, it was very interesting because I could see myself sitting back and thinking, yeah, it's plausible. This is plausible. That, I don't know if there's some of the theories. I think for me, I leaned towards the kidnapping by the terrorist organization trying to, use her as a pawn to get his release.
I do think of everything we talked about, that is the one that makes the most sense to me. Now, what happened to her after that?
Right.
I think that's tough because in my mind, a terrorist organization, once they realized that this is not going to work, they're not going to hang on to a 15-year-old girl.
Yeah.
I just don't think they are.
And I don't think they're going to give her back.
No.
Because by giving her back, you're saying, well, if you don't negotiate with me, eventually I'll give her back to you anyway.
Exactly.
So I think, yes, the worst case probably did happen. They probably did kill her somehow. That's my assumption.
Yeah, and I think it's valid. And again, like I said, I think it makes sense. The sad thing about that is if it's true, we'll probably never know.
Right.
What really, really happened to Emanuela, because she's probably not buried in Italy.
No.
She's probably buried somewhere where nobody's ever going to look for her, never going to find her. But I will say this as we wrap it up. I think from everything you read, Gibbs, and we kind of talked about conspiracy theories, there are a lot of people out there that think that the Vatican, the church, they know more about Emanuela's disappearance than they've been willing to share, or they knew more.
Right.
And probably still do. If they knew it, they probably still know it.
Yeah.
But again, I don't know if that's true or not. What I'm saying is there are a lot of people that believe that.
I think it's plausible they probably do know more. And they've determined that what they know is not going to make things better to release that information.
And it could be detrimental, even if they didn't do anything wrong.
Right.
Whatever the information is, could be detrimental to them.
Right.
But that's it. That's the case of the disappearance of Emanuela Orlandi. Like you said, I do think it's a very fascinating but sad case.
You know, we know that people go missing every day, right?
Probably every hour.
Every hour.
If I had to guess.
Yeah. This one was just had that intrigue of being international, being in a country within a country, right? And
well, I think anytime the Vatican, the Pope, is tied to a specific case, it adds an element of intrigue, for sure. We got some voicemails. You want to hear those?
Yeah.
Hi, guys. My name's Kayla from Fayetteville, Arkansas, and I've been listening for a while. I have a suggestion, a case of Gary McCullough. My uncle was really good friends with him, and it's torn him up for years not knowing what happened to him. It's suspected that his wife murdered him, but they've never found him. And a few years later, his daughter ended up disappearing as well. So I just thought it would be a good suggestion for you guys. I enjoy listening to the podcast. Keep your own time ticking.
All right. Thank you for that voicemail. Gibbs, we'll have to write that down.
Yeah.
Check into it. I think not knowing anything about that case, it'll be interesting to see how much information is out there.
Right.
Sometimes in cases, we just can't find enough.
Definitely check it out, though.
Hi, Mike and Gibby. This is Mandy from Richmond, Virginia. I am calling because I absolutely love you guys' show. I shared it with my twin, and we both listen religiously. And she's always telling me about episodes, and I'm telling her about episodes. We're both nurses, and so we are ER nurses, and we've seen lots of crazy things, and so we can always find it interesting, just what people are capable of. So anyway, this is just a really amazing podcast, one that brings a lot of humor, and just I think really honors the lives of the people that have been lost, but in a way that's definitely very easy to listen to. So keep doing what you're doing. We absolutely love you guys. My parents are also love true crime, but they're not quite sure how to do the whole podcast thing yet. So we're trying to get them in on it too. Anyway, keep your own time ticking. Bye.
All right. We love nurses, Gibbs. Well, I love nurses.
Yeah, you do.
I may have said it before. My mom is a nurse. So special place in my heart. You got to get those parents into the technology. Like Gibby would say, you got to go over to their house.
Yeah.
Get their phone. Show them, not even show them, do it.
That's right.
Subscribe just so it pops up. Like that commercial with the Alexa. you ever seen that one where the guy's coming over to his grandfather's house and he's telling Alexa, tell grandpa at 6:15, and then grandpa's playing that song for him, or, you know,
Right. Yeah.
they'll figure it out.
They'll figure it out. Or they'll out there call you every day until they do.
You just, have him call Gibby. He'll walk him through it.
That's right.
Hi, my name is Kira. I'm calling all the way from Houston. I'm a huge fan of you guys. Y'all are my favorite podcast. I just thought I'd tell y'all something funny. So I have listened to all you guys' episodes, but I was getting my husband involved in my listening and binge listening when I was pregnant, and I was home all the time. And it's funny, I would listen to the episodes with my phone on my stomach, and so I'm guessing my baby could kind of hear you guys' voices. And now when I play it on speaker out loud, he'll hear y'all and look around. So I think he recognizes who you are. So you already have a little fan in him, and he's only 7 months old. But yeah, I mean, as long as I can remember, I've been a fan of true crime as well. So I'm passing that on to my son. Yeah, so stay safe and keep your own time ticking. Love you guys. Also, I'm Team Gibby. Love you, Gibby. Bye.
Well,
There you
great.
go.
I know. Wonder if we can, is it too early for a baby K-bar?
Probably. I think it's frowned upon.
Yeah.
But, you know, like sports teams have a minor leagues.
Right.
You have to develop the next generation of TCAT listeners, and that's what she's doing.
It's a good thing.
It's a good thing.
Generations.
Now, it's going to be many, many years before he's able to listen to the podcast, but
Well, you know.
and count as a download, right?
Yeah. That's the key there.
Because here pretty soon he's going to be old enough where he can't listen to it because he'll understand. Right now, he don't understand what's going on.
Hi guys, my name is Mackenzie. I actually am from Canton, Georgia, and the reason I'm calling is September the 10th today, and my boyfriend, Pete, his birthday is tomorrow, September the 11th, and we've almost been dating a year, and in that year, he is, because of me, has become this crazy true crime junkie. It's like Discovery ID is on the TV all the time now. He is binge listening to you guys because he drives a lot for work, and he's always like coming home like, guess what, did you hear what Gibby, do you remember when Gibby said this and that? And so we're always talking about the episodes, and I've been listening to you guys since the beginning, and I'm just so grateful. I love your podcast so much. When my mom was going through chemo and through her passing, I just really binge listened to y'all, and you made me laugh, and you got me through that time in my life, and I'm just really grateful, and I love your podcast. So thank you for everything you do, and happy birthday, V, tomorrow. I love you. You're the best guy ever, and hope you have the best day. Thank you, guys. Keep your own time ticking. Bye.
So I will say, as far as voicemails go, this is not as far behind as most voicemails.
No.
So
No.
maybe, a week and a half after his birthday, but belated happy birthday.
Absolutely. Have a good birthday.
So that was a great voicemail, though. Makes us feel good, Gibbs. We've said it before, but anytime we can help someone in such a small way, and just the fact that people appreciate what we do.
Yeah, love it, man.
We do love it. All right, that is it for another episode of True Crime All the Time Unsolved. So for Mike
and Gibby,
stay safe and keep your own time ticking.